Hi, and welcome to Karen's Kitchen Easy. Together with our kitchen basics, tips, and tricks, we're going to make you the star of your kitchen. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my YouTube channel and check out the link below this video. It will take you to karenskitcheneasy.com where you can find a printable version of today's recipe. And just remember, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But wait, it is easy, and you can do it too. Today's recipe is cracking up easy saltine crackers. And it's just as the title says, they are so easy. As you can see, there are very few ingredients and it just takes a few minutes of your time. We start with 3 cups of regular white flour and a little bit more for rolling out, teaspoon of salt, and a package of dry yeast. I like to use the quick rising kind or the fast rising kind. It comes in a little packet in your grocery store where they sell flour and sugar. Also a cup of warm water, or lukewarm water. We're going to start by putting just a little bit of the flour into a good sized mixing bowl, and we're going to put the warm water in with it. Now, not too hot, just a little bit more than room temperature is good. We're going to add the salt to that, and we're going to sprinkle our yeast on top. By mixing the yeast with the warm water, we'll start to activate it, and that helps to make our saltine crackers light and fluffy. So we're going to stir, and as we stir, you can see our mixture is turning a slight tan color, and that's because we're dissolving the yeast in the water. So we're going to stir it up, and it looks just pretty much well dissolved now. And when that's done, we're going to take the rest of our flour and put it into the mixture. So let me get a few more of these lumps out here. Yeah, that looks pretty well. So we'll put the rest of the flour in that's in our 3-cup mixing bowl. And we're simply going to stir it all to incorporate the flour in. Now, some days may take a little bit more flour or a little bit less flour. As it's kind of dry out today, our mixture looks like it's a little bit too dry. So I think I may have to add a little bit more water. But let's take a look here. Yeah, this is just a little bit too crumbly. So I think I'm going to put just a few more sprinkles of water into it. Just about a tablespoon of water. And then we're going to stir it up again because we want to be sure all the flour gets incorporated into our yeast and water mixture. And that looks pretty good. We have our dough all mixed together. We're actually going to knead it, and I'm sure you remember from our lesson way back when on the shortbread cookies how to knead, but I'll go over this a little bit again. We're simply going to sprinkle a little flour on our work surface, and again this can be a countertop or a wood cutting board, as you can see, and just put our dough onto it. And we're going to knead it with a folding motion. It's very simple. We simply flatten our ball out and fold it in half, just like that, and then turn it and fold it in half again. Turn it, fold it in half. And we're going to keep doing this for about 8 to 10 minutes. And this is just a very nice easy gesture, and as you can see, I'm using the palms of my hands to press down on that dough. And what this does is it stretches our flour out a little bit. It makes sure that all the flour is dissolved into our dough, and it releases the gluten that's in the flour, which will help give some integrity to our crackers. So I'll see you back here in about 8 minutes. And there we have a beautiful ball of dough. It's very soft on top. You can see all the flour is well incorporated, and we just simply have a nice ball of dough here. I'm going to take a bowl. We're going to spray a little bit of oil into it and put our dough into the bowl. Then we're going to spray a little oil on top of it. Now what this does is keeps the surface from drying out, because we're going to let this set for about an hour. And that's going to cause it to raise up. And that's what we want to do. We want to let that yeast do its thing. And it's going to about double in bulk. So set this someplace away from drafts, room temperature, or a little bit above room temperature, maybe on the side of the stove. So I'll see you in an hour. Oh, there we have it, beautifully raised up. It's at least doubled in size. I'm going to take my fist. That's always the fun part. Push it down in the center. And by spraying the bowl, you can see that it releases very easily from the sides of the bowl. So we're going to spread a little bit more flour onto our cutting board. Roll our dough out onto it. Now we're not going to roll this whole thing at once. We're going to cut a little piece off of it because we're going to roll it just a little bit at a time. So I'm going to take my handy dandy bench scraper that I just love to use, chop just a little bit off the side and set the rest away to work with later. So as you can see, I just have a small ball here. And I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more flour on my cutting surface. And also sprinkle some flour on your rolling pin to make sure it doesn't stick. And we're just going to simply start rolling it. And I like to roll it and then turn it 90 degrees and then roll it in that direction and turn it 90 degrees. And that way it guarantees that you have a nice even roll and you have the same thickness on all sides, because that's very important when you're making crackers. And sprinkle a little more flour on to be sure that nothing sticks. I'm going to turn it again. And we want to get this very thin, because the thinner you get it, the crispier your cracker is going to be. And of course, that's our goal here. So, and as you can see, it's very easy to pick up and move. Whoops, let's flatten that out a little bit. Okay. And when you finish rolling it out, it should be so thin you can almost see through it. So sort of translucent when we're done. And be sure everything is just as even as you can get it. And then when we finish with this, we're going to use a cutter to cut it in pieces. Now you can use a knife and make it square crackers. Let's roll it one more time here. Smooth it out. There we go. And at this point, you're going to want to preheat your oven to about 400 degrees. You can see how nice and thin we've got that dough. Beautiful, nice and thin. And what I have here is a 2-inch cookie cutter and a 3-inch cookie cutter. And those are great size for crackers, but you don't have to use circles. You can use different shapes, or you can cut it in squares with a knife or a pizza cutter. But I'm just going to use round cookie cutter. And as you can see, I'm cutting these very close together because we can't reuse the dough. So be a little bit careful with your cutting and use as much of the dough as you can. Because if we were to roll this up and re-roll it, it would be a very tough cracker, very difficult to bite into, and you don't want that. So cut as many rounds or whatever shape you choose out of your dough. And when we're done, we're going to put these onto an ungreased cookie sheet. It doesn't have to be greased because it's not going to stick. And when we're done cutting our circles out here, we're just going to lift away the unused dough, and there we have all our lovely little crackers. Now, once we've got it all lifted away, we're going to put it into our baking sheet. And remember, you don't have to oil it or grease it or anything. It's just a plain old baking sheet. Now, I am actually using one that has release on it, but you don't have to do that. And you can put them pretty close together because they're not going to spread like cookies do or something like that. So just get all of your crackers laid on a cookie sheet. And remember, your oven is preheating at 400 degrees, which is a fairly hot oven, but they're not going to bake very long. And once we get them all on the pan here, We have 2 more steps before we can put it into the oven. We're actually going to take a fork and we're going to pierce them. And this kind of guarantees that they don't puff up in the center. So I'm going to take a fork here and just punch twice on each one. And see, we don't want it to puff in the center. And the yeast would actually cause it to do that. But the fork marks will keep them relatively flat. So just a couple of punch marks in each cracker. And when you buy crackers in the store, I'm sure you've noticed those little holes in the cracker, and that's what the companies do to keep them relatively flat so things sit on them easily. Once we get all of the holes punched in our crackers, then we're going to sprinkle some toppings on. I'm actually just going to use a sea salt here. But this is where you can get creative. You can use cracked pepper, you can use herbs such as rosemary or basil, and then we're going to press it down into the cracker just to be sure it doesn't fall off. So just very lightly press the crackers down. And then they're going to go in a 400-degree oven for about 8 or 9 minutes. We want to watch them a little bit because we don't want them to get brown, just slightly tan. As you can see here, put them on a rack after they've come out of the oven to make sure they cool completely. And there you have it, beautiful little crackers that you can serve up with your next hors d'oeuvres. You can serve them with something savory, you can serve them with something sweet, you can be creative. And there we have it. Just remember, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But wait, it is easy, and you can do it too. So I'll see you next time on Karen's Kitchen Easy.